All right, well, it's been 6 long months for NYPD's new Commissioner Keechant Sewell. Since taking the helm back in January, she was immediately thrown into the fray, faced with a series of shocking crimes, a mass shooting in the subway in Brooklyn, the killing of 2 NYPD officers tragically, and a steady stream of gun violence.
Many New Yorkers are asking, when is it going to stop, and when will our city be safe again? Joining us right now for the first time in our studio for her first live interview on Good Day New York, NYPD Commissioner Keechant L. Nice to have you here.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks both for inviting me here.
You did not have a honeymoon period. I mean, the minute you basically stepped into the job, you were dealing with major shootings. What was that like for you to have to get up to speed so quickly?
From the very first day, I think January 1st, we had our first shooting. We had an officer who was shot in the car after being assigned to the New Year's Eve detail, and it did not stop. I mean, as you said, from day one, we hit the ground running, but we expected to. There's a lot of challenges in the city, and we knew we had to face them head on.
Let's talk about this mass shooting that just happened at the FDR Drive Sunday. I mean, so many people wounded. I mean, it was crazy. What I've heard was 500 people gathered at that spot. Now, in the old days, low-level crime would have been, you don't have a permit, you can't be here, right? But because of the way low-level crimes are treated in this city, that congregation was allowed to stay there. Do you think there could have been an alternate way to kind of deal with that, to disperse the crowd before the shooting happened?
Well, first, I want to send our sincere condolences to the family of Mr. Lee and to all of the victims of that shooting. It's absolutely unacceptable. So to your point, there was no permit for that event. And we try to make sure we deploy resources to be able to break up those parties before they become unruly. We had no 311 calls or 911 calls for that party before that event. That being said, the officers and detectives are conducting that investigation, and I know they will never stop until they get the answers that we need in that situation. But I will say across the city, we are in our 10th consecutive weeks of declines in shootings. We have taken over 3,000 weapons off the street, guns off the streets so far this year. And we don't take it lightly, we don't take it for granted. Our arrests are at a 28-year high. We are focused on deterrence and prevention. Every single day, we meet with our local, federal, and state partners to be able to make sure we're developing the strongest cases possible to be able to hold people accountable for their actions. So this is not a trend. We're focusing all of our resources on gun violence and being able to make the city safer every single day.
Just getting back to that Harlem shooting very quickly. Anything you can tell us about that investigation? We've been reporting it as a mass shooting. There were obviously several people who were hit. Was this 2 groups shooting back and forth at each other? Was it a targeted incident? Do we know anything about this yet?
So that is all part of the investigation. We know that multiple firearms were used and multiple people were shot. We have over 50 shell casings at that scene. 50. So that's an active investigation.
You talk about some of those statistics, the numbers that have been declining over the past several weeks. A lot of people hear about these headlines, they sort of hear the news, but taking a closer look at the numbers, you say that there is steady improvement, slow but steady improvement. What have you done and the mayor's office done to bring about some of these changes that you say are leading to some of these declines?
So we have a number of different strategies. We have our neighborhood safety teams that are out there. We have our public safety teams that are out there. We have our gun violence suppression division. We have our gun violence strategies partnership. We are using all of our resources to focus on the challenges we have in this city because it has to be something that we bring down. And we're seeing steady improvement.
Those neighborhood safety teams, there have been reports that they have been dealing with a lot of some of the lower level crimes, not necessarily taking guns and guns and guns off the streets so far. That was a big initiative, something that the mayor said he was going to bring back. How is that going so far in terms of what they are set out to do?
They're doing what we asked them to do. They are doing some of the most dangerous car stops we see in policing. They've taken over 130 guns off the street, and I think that's pretty significant. So even when we engage low-level offenders, we may be stopping higher level offenses down the line.
Let's talk about one-man patrols, because obviously the perception of being safe in the subway, it needs to be worked on, right? So I know the mayor talked about these one-man patrols. He has modified his original intention of having one police officer in a subway car. Tell us about that, and do you think there needs to be more modifications to make sure that it's effective and also safe for your police officers?
Well, in order to keep people safe, the officers have to be safe. So the plan was always meant to be flexible. And what we're seeing is an adjustment in real time based on the current conditions. The idea is to separate officers so we have that omnipresence, so officers are visible to talk about the safety that people need to feel in the subways. So we can readjust that plan as we do any other plan going forward. But we need to make sure that officers are seeing each other in a line of sight so they can look out for the public by looking out for each other as well.
Do you like this new idea that the MTA is going to do, putting cameras, hidden cameras in the subway, but it's not in real time? It would only be used, I guess, if there was some kind of, terrible crime, and then they would go back to use that as a reference, right?
Our transit investigators work hand in hand with the MTA, and we use their footage consistently to solve crimes. So I welcome any other technology that we can use to apprehend offenders and solve crimes.
It's interesting when we talk about the solo subway patrols and the patrols here. Essentially, part of the goal is to saturate the system with as many police officers as possible. Sometimes, in this case, there's been the argument that this sort of stretches thin the possible aspects of what an officer can actually handle on his own. What do you make of that criticism of it? I mean, can you do more to put even more officers with some of these folks down in the system?
We have surged thousands of officers into the transit system since we began our subway safety plan. So, as we stated, officers are going to be in line of sight at each other so they can always have the assistance that they're ready to be able to assist.
Can that actually happen? I mean, if there's one guy in the back, one woman in the front, where they can actually see each other, is that a practical thing that can actually happen?
They'll be in constant radio contact. There'll be support nearby, whatever they need.
But we know the radios are spotty in the subway, right?
They've gotten a lot better, and we have an app that we just created to be able to assist them in communication in the subway, but we have gotten better over the years.
Can we talk about the heroic actions of some of your police officers in the subway in Bay Ridge, my old stomping grounds, the other day?
Thank you so much for asking that. I always like to talk about the heroic actions because they never cease to amaze me in the NYPD. Weeks ago, we had 2 officers who actually were deployed into the subway system. They were actually Housing Bureau officers who saved a man who had fallen face first onto the tracks, and they were able to be right there, that deployment that we talk about, to get him off the tracks and bring him to safety. We saw it just the other day, 2 officers in the 6th State, also in Brooklyn. A person was having a medical emergency, fell onto the tracks. They were right there to get that person up. It never stops. They are always there, and that's why we have the deployment there.
Well, that's fantastic, and we congratulate them on their great work. But we're hearing about retirement, and a lot of people just, I guess, demoralized in the department, and that's why maybe large numbers of people are retiring. What are you hearing, and what are you going to do about the recruitment?
The well-being of our officers and their morale is paramount. It's important because we need to have motivated officers who want to do this job. People retire for a number of reasons, and we wish them well. Right now, we have a terrific recruitment campaign going. We started it on June 6th. It ends in July. A little commercial. If you're interested, please go on the website and click apply. There's a QR code people can use as well. We want the best of the best. We want people who believe that they can make a difference in the police department to apply, because what better way to have the voice of the people than to be a part of the police department?
You've entered this position at such a fragile time. Don't need to describe everything that's going on, but certainly the relationship between the community and the police department, fragile, frayed over the course of the last few years with the George Floyd protests and things along those lines. How do you balance that aspect of it with this need to, in a sense, get tough on crime again, what people are saying?
Our focus is always community driven. We have to have the voices of the community to be able to do what we do. We have to build that trust, and we have to have transparency. So we always look to the community for their ideas. We go into the community and have them tell us what they need from us. So we will always seek the help of the community, and I think we have to have engagement and enforcement to be able to be effective.
There was a report about a month ago that you've been meeting with some businesses in the city to encourage them to try and bring workers back into the city, telling them the city is safe. Things can happen here. How have those meetings been going, and what can you tell us about that?
Our business community is so important to New York City, and it's important that we make them feel safe, that they can bring their employees back. So we've been doing these presentations to basically show them what we're doing as a police department to make the city safer, and the initiatives that we have that they can bring their employees back.
So, you know, the police department obviously has been complaining about they don't have the tools to fight crime in this city. Let's start with one of them, bail reform. Do you think it needs to be reformed again? And do you hope that Alvin Bragg, who's a Manhattan prosecutor, gets a little tougher on crime?
We work well with our DAs across the entire city. We're actually encouraged with the Manhattan DA's new initiative on organized retail theft. They're basically looking at recidivists, and that's what we actually ask our DAs to do, because we can't have serial shoplifters continue to victimize the businesses of this city. So while the criminal justice reforms may have been well-meaning, we think they need to be tweaked, and we've asked for some changes. There were some minor changes that were made, but we need them to go a little bit farther.
You know, it seems like across the country, everybody's trying to reform. Chicago, the mayor there has a new idea. Police department is not allowed to chase after a suspect. Do you foresee that ever happening in New York City, that you would tell the police department, do not chase after a suspect on foot?
As far as I'm concerned, there was no such plan to adopt that policy.
Part of what you're talking about there are these quality of life crimes, the decriminalization of some of these issues that took place a few years ago. Some people say that that led and opened the door for the issues that we're seeing today. Do you agree with that?
I think quality of life is significant. I think if you address quality of life crimes, you can probably stop some more serious offenses, and that's exactly what we do. We think when we engage people at the lower level to be able to stop someone who's outstretched on the subway, a loud party, for instance, that may get out of control, like we saw over the past weekend, we can stop some of the higher offenses.
Later on this week, or maybe even today in Washington, they look to be set to pass a major gun control legislation bill. We know that guns in the city is a huge problem coming from out of state, whatever they may be. If you've taken a look at this at all, do you think that will make a difference here in New York City, or is that something that sort of happens in the background and we have to keep going?
Any legislation that limits the weapons that come to the streets of New York City, I'm all for, and I welcome it.
All right, let's talk about dirt bikes, because I hear them every Sunday night about 5 or 6 o'clock. They're very loud in my neighborhood, and you know, they're coming through doing wheelies and everything else, but I noticed that you were crushing a bunch of them the other day.
These vehicles are being operated recklessly, irresponsibly, and illegally. I mean, our strategies in that department are taking hold. I think you probably saw earlier this week, we crushed 92 of them. There's about 600 more that we're waiting to destroy. The communities have said these are a nuisance. We want them off the street, and we've heard them loud and clear. We will continue to seize these vehicles and destroy them when appropriate.
We heard the mayor say that was a sense of lawlessness that was in place when that was last summer, when they just seemed like they were everywhere. Here we are approaching another summer where crime typically ticks up and people are outside more. More things are happening. How is the department sort of bracing for what potentially could be a long summer?
As you said, during the warmer months, things do start to tick up, but we are not taking our foot off the gas for a second. We have a number of different initiatives in place. We have the entire city covered with a number of different plans. We have our Summer 40 plan, which focuses on the top 40 precincts with the highest number of crime. We have enhanced deployment. We have we reorganized parts of the department to be able to put more officers on the street to be able to address the crime that we expect during the summer.
Let's talk about the Pride Parade on Saturday. You know, a lot of people concerned about safety. Any new procedures with that parade on Saturday? Oh, I'm sorry, it's Sunday.
It is.
Yeah.
So we'll be out there, obviously, to create a sense of safety for everyone who marches in that parade or attends that parade. We have a significant counterterrorism position that we take for these as well. We evaluate them on a case-by-case basis. There are no known threats to that parade at this time, but we will be out there.
What keeps you up at night? Because it seems like the minute you stepped into the job, you've been running.
Very first night that officer was shot. On your very first night on the job.
A lot of coffee is the first thing. But I think for me, it's not so much what keeps me up, it's what wakes me up at night. And I think when that phone rings, you know something significant has happened. Someone's hurt, someone's in trouble, something needs my immediate attention. And with all of the tragedies that we had, it's something I'm mindful of. So when that phone rings, I know it's something that's going to really take my attention and something that we really need to focus on.
What don't we know about Keechant Sewell?
Wow, I think when I first came, I had a lot of scrutiny when I first came. So I like to cook, and it's not a matter of me just kind of boiling a hot dog. I actually like to cook.
Really? Like
yeah,
what? What's your forte?
I do everything. I do my little mise en place. I make sure I have all of my ingredients. I even watch some things on television. I make sure I have all of my knives sharpened. I don't fool around. That's a big deal to me.
Might have another segment coming.
All right, I feel like we may have to have you in the Good Day Cafe the next time. Police Commissioner, good luck, because when you do well, the city does well. So
thank you so much.
We wish you all the very best.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.